Summertime is prime moving season, but some people aren't only dealing with the stress of moving, they're also becoming victims of scammers in the process.
Yeah, consumer reporter Jim Pachano has information to protect you as you pack up your belongings.
There are con artists out there posing as movers, providing an estimate and taking deposits, but never showing up to move your stuff. Some scammers estimate a price based on weight or volume, but switch gears after loading your items and tell you your items weigh much more than the quote, then charge you significantly more than you budgeted. Yet others will load your items but never arrive at your new home, either stealing your belongings or holding them hostage until you pay an additional fee. The Ohio Attorney General's office is arming consumers with some red flags and things to consider when you're choosing a mover. If the company doesn't list an address or provide information about its registration and/or insurance coverage, be suspicious. Same goes for one that uses rented trucks instead of their own marked ones. Avoid providing a large down payment or paying in full before the move or paying in cash unless the work's been done. Make sure you get a written contract and read the terms to firm up when your belongings will be picked up and delivered. Get in-person or virtual estimates because scammers usually avoid those. Take photos before and after the move in case you have insurance claims for broken or damaged items. And move important things like personal documents yourself. Attorney General Dave Yost says it's important to call law enforcement if you've been ripped off.
Even if they can't find the perpetrator, they need to know because there may be a pattern. You might not be the only one, and your case might lead to another case that leads to the person that did it.
Yost says the consumer protection section of his office uses the data victims provide to understand what's going on in the marketplace and better protect consumers. Jen Pachano, 19 News.